Okay, back at the wargaming table. Took a few days off away from the game here. It's Rebel Yell. So I'm definitely gonna have to get my mind back into the play here. But while I was away from play here, I was thinking a few things. First of all, I was thinking about the game. That's probably a good sign. But have a few, I don't know, random thoughts before I try to pick up here again. First of all, I'm glad I'm experiencing this slice of wargaming history. So this was 1995, around 1995. I think I'm seeing some different years, but they're all around 1995. So we are talking in early 90s, early to mid 90s war game design. And I am seeing a bit, I think, kind of the spirit of game design at this time. Detail. Not necessarily very intuitive, not necessarily very, well, certainly not very elegant game design, pieces, aspects at least. Fiddly, I guess. But fiddly is a word that's... Let me just say something quickly about fiddly. As I see it in wargame discussions, fiddly definitely has some different connotations depending on who's using the term and the circumstances, I think, of the use of the term. I try to narrow the term fiddly to something that's more useful, because I don't think that fiddly is a very useful concept if fiddly is just going to be used for whatever kind of game design element you don't like. So anyways, for me, fiddly is a narrow term of basically a lot of physical manipulation, and that generally means counters. But I guess you could also say, yeah, I guess an aspect of it is the rules themselves, tables and charts. Yeah, I think those are the main things. I think the rules themselves, the charts, tables, and play aids, and then the counters. So if you have to go through a lot of manipulation of those things, I guess one or more of those things, not because you don't know the game, but because that's the way the game's designed. That's the way the game's designed. That to me is fiddly. It's not by itself. It doesn't mean that much to me. I mean, I'm neither a fan of nor opposed to fiddliness in that sense. But boy, I see it here. So like fiddly means, and so I'm about to go through this, but when I go to do anything with even one unit in this stack, fiddly means I'm taking that whole stack away. I mean, it's almost mandatory. It's very hard. I don't see how you can get away with not doing that. You're pulling it away. All of these counters are in a particular order. Information counters are in a particular place. So, fiddly. What does fiddly really mean? What fiddly really means is, if I go to move this stack because I want to do something with at least one, if I want to do at least one thing with at least one unit in that stack, and I accidentally drop that stack, fiddly means, well, you're in a problem. Okay. But I'm glad I am seeing this slice of gaming history. It's funny, if this is early to mid 90s, it's funny to see how, when I started regularly getting into these tabletop war games after 2010, really after 2011, really not until 2012. But anyways, so I guess I would say, well, I guess about 20 years later, the war cries in the wargaming community seem to be at the opposite end of the pendulum swing. But anyways, I'm glad I'm seeing this for myself. Okay. And it's really not, I'm saying I'm glad to see it. I'm not implying whether it's good or bad, but I'll tell you it's not bad. But I notice there's just one thing I want to say about game design at this time, which I think I like. But there's one thing that kind of stands out to me. So I'm talking about the state of design at this time period, talking roughly early mid-90s. The rules were, and I'm not going to say the rules complicated, I'm not going to say detailed, I'm not going to say any of those, but I will say wargame rules had gotten to the point, I think, where, for a number of different reasons, I guess I'll use one example, and that's the turn structure, but I think there are a few examples there. So for a few different major reasons, you can't easily get into play. I just don't think you can. Like a bicycle, you have to get on, you have to get riding, you have to get momentum going, you have to go through the process of pedaling and controlling the bicycle before you get the hang of really riding the bicycle. That's a pretty lame example, or analogy, but so one example is the turn structure. I think at this time, I think the state of game design here was that a typical war game turn at this point in game design had been taken apart, and I'll say taken apart extensively, like all the pieces of a turn have been pulled apart and have been rearranged in a way that isn't necessarily intuitive. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't done for a design intent. I'm sure, I believe it was done. I'm not even going to say assume. I believe it was done for a design intent, but you did that. That's exactly what I mean. It's almost like flying a jet fighter in a simulator. So it's like flying a jet fighter in a simulator, where the simulator pulls all the different pieces apart that go into flying the jet fighter, and you do all of those things in a particular way according to the rules, but not according to anything that you'd call intuitive or directly related to the real world activity of flying the fighter jet. But okay, so that's that. And then the other main point I wanted to highlight, I've gone longer than I expected, but being away from this game, I was thinking again, this is a game that I really, really, really should like. And I'm not saying I do or I don't, I just don't know yet. I gotta play it some more. But again, I'm saying this is a game that I really should like. So I'll go right down the list as I'm just looking at it. So you have you have a hefty rule book. Okay, I've only been using the first few pages, so I don't know what else to say about it, but it's a hefty rule book. over 1,000 counters. Over 1,000 counters, and for the most part, every single counter is basically a universal counter. Basically, I'm not going to say generic because I don't think generic's the right word, but universal counters. Yeah, over 1,000 counters, half-inch counters, great. The map and the terrain, 2 different kinds of woods and light woods. There's like 7 or 8 different elevation levels. Was it 3 different kinds of thoroughfares? Oh, I guess I'll take a look. Yeah, so you have pike road and trails for thoroughfares. You have creeks versus streams. You have light woods versus woods. This is all good stuff for me. It's absolutely good stuff for me. You have let me see if I can, yeah. You have, line formation and column formation. You have stand to maneuver, stand to fire. Where's the skirmish markers? Somewhere in here are skirmish markers, but I mean, all this stuff is like, this is what I believe I want. So does it turn out to be, the rail fence and stone fences? That's great. But now does it actually turn out to be this? Yeah, got to find out. All right, so I'm looking at the displays, everything here, and it's telling me it's game turn 3. Should be the segment. The game turn segment is player 1. And this is my reminder that it's the Union side that's player 1 for this scenario. It says player 1 small arms fire. So all we do is small arms fire, which means, for example, we will not be, was it rally? I think it's rally. Yeah, rally. We will not be rallying. We'll only be going through and doing firing. Yeah, I might talk through one of them, but I'll definitely get through all this firing. Well, I realize that the rulebook actually has this exact example, but anyways, real quickly, got the 2 Union units. The top unit has 1 organizational hit. If 1 unit fires from this hex, no more. If even 1 unit fires, basically, how do you say this? Units that are stacked in hex may not fire separately. Once even 1 unit in hex fires at a target, no other unit in that hex may fire. They're from the same regiment, they're stacked together, they can fire together. Each has a base strength of 1, so this is 1 times the range factor of 4, which is 4 for a musket, smoothbore musket at range 1. So 1 times 4 is 4. This one is 1 times 4 minus 1 for the O hit, which is 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. So I start on the 6 to 7 line of the CRT. I go down 1 for the target being in woods. So I go down to the 5 line on the CRT. I roll a 4, cross-reference that, and I get a the question mark. Question mark is, the units, affected units must make an organization check. Organization check, disorganization. Now I remember the issue with all the different terminology, but having cleared my head, I'm just going to roll with it. It's a organization check, disorganization check, same thing, I guess. They roll a 6, which is just barely enough because the morale for actually both sides, the base morale in this scenario is 6. So they roll a 6, so they're good. There is no further effect. Okay, I want to show this because I think this is my first 2 result. Okay, so moving on to the next unit for small arms fire, player 1 or Union, these guys here. These disrupted guys, I believe they can fire, but it's it's -3. That's pretty significant. Yeah, anyways, I'll skip the disrupted. I don't have to skip the disrupted units, but I will. So I have these 2 good companies firing. They could fire on the same unit, but I'm thinking now they should start thinking about spreading out their effects. So they went against this 1 good order rebel company in the woods there. They have 8. -1 for the woods is the 6 to 7 line. Yeah, 6-7 line. They're very lucky. They roll a 0. I think I set the wrong color setting on my phone. Anyways, very lucky. So that is a 2 result. And there we go. So now, unit suffers 2 O hits. Unit must make organization check. So I believe now that it's 6 -1 for each O hit suffered. So I think their morale drops from 6 to 4. And I think that's the only thing that, yeah, so they fail. So they roll 5, which, you know, again, they would have passed if they hadn't had the 2 result, but they did, so they fail. Is disrupted. So I think, yeah, so I think it's like that. So, which is not only is it fine, it's actually good. I don't see that combat results are pretty much ever overwhelming. I don't know what the chances are to get an overwhelming combat result, but we'll see with more play.